Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Just to quickly introduce myself, so I'm David Page from Business Mix. Business Mix is an innovation consultancy that works with large corporates to help them operationalise their innovation strategy, and we also help companies to scale. We're based in London and Singapore. I'm going to go and join the panel in a moment, but I'm going to first of all ask the first question, and then we'll be sharing mics, I think, as we go. So I'm going to just ask them all to introduce themselves. Kristin, perhaps if I could ask you to start, but also perhaps answer the first question as well, which is, as you introduce yourself, what do you see as the current hot topics and key trends for corporate innovation?
Thanks, David. I'm Kristin Rickert. I work for Johnson Matthey. We're a sustainable technology company, and we use our science to help our customers make the world a cleaner and healthier place. In terms of corporate innovation and trends, I think more and more we're seeing the externalization of innovation and really driving to create partnerships with new players, not just with startups, but actually with other corporate organizations.
And I'm Ian McDonald, CTO in residence at Microsoft for Startups. So I have dual responsibility, partly to help in our accelerator, our corporate accelerator, and the second side is to help the whole startup ecosystem. And the key trends I see in corporate innovation is like how do we start applying things directly now? How do we start applying AI? You know, how do we make the digital transformation so that we're using cloud consistently? Those are the sort of things I see going on. We've been talking about it, understanding it for quite a few years, and having it applied across all businesses.
Hi, my name is Magdalena. I head up RISE London, created by Barclays. We are a fintech platform in the heart of Shoreditch. We're the home to 48 fintech startups that are kind of building the future of financial services, we like to say. We also run the Barclays Accelerator program from RISE London, which is our strategic program that is focusing on bringing new innovation into the bank. And what the trends I see in corporate innovation is just as mentioned before, is the partnership piece. And actually, I think for startups, it has partnership with a commercial stamp on it, not just a soft stamp of a nice collaboration, but really driving how do you drive value for both the corporate and the startup to help them both grow and serve their customers better.
Hi, my name is Avnish. I lead Accenture Ventures and Open Innovation Program in India. I'm based in Bangalore. Basically, we partner, invest and acquire growth stage B2B deep tech startups. All the three have to be there for us to get interested. In terms of the corporate innovation trends, I think the key one has been talked about already. It is about building your new ecosystem. Right? All corporates and all organizations have been used to working with some partners or the other. If you look at Accenture, a significant part of our revenue at one time used to come from SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft. But as we have got into the digital age, we are partnering with the digital native cloud-based companies as well as the more smaller B2B startups as well. And we are also taking very good interest in terms of what is happening in the academia as well. So you can see a new ecosystem being built by corporates, and the old partners, while are still important, are not the only ones where you are working with.
Thanks, guys. So I think very clearly about open innovation and about good partnerships. So actually a question around that is what has the panel seen that makes a good partnership, and indeed what have you seen that's made a bad partnership? So perhaps Magda, you could lead us off with that one.
partnership or a bad partnership?
Both. What have you seen that's good? What should people strive for? And maybe where things gone a bit awry and we maybe need to avoid.
Well, if I start with the bad, I'm going to start with the bad because I can actually, but it turns into something good. So I guess what we've seen through our startup programs or our accelerator program is actually the attempt for the bank to actively work with the startups and try out new things with them, and that's essentially our objective with what we want to do with these companies. But we've also along that way identified a lot of shortcomings within the organization. For example, the ability for the bank to share data, and that is. We have examples where we have attempted to go and work with the startups. We promise them things that because we have the intention to do it, and then discover that actually, because of our infrastructure, it's going to be quite a challenge. But it turns into something good because there's no in our book. We want to see how we can solve it. It's just that it ends up taking a bit longer time. And then in terms of good examples of partnerships, I think we have plenty of use cases through different channels. And for example, today we announced a partnership with Simodyne, who is a predictive analytic company, and really, really exciting. Going to run a big pilot with them to help us manage our risk better and make better decisions in the future. And this, just the ability for us now to sign these contracts a little bit faster in comparison with what we were able to do a few years ago, because we've been running our program now for 4 years, and every year and every program we run, we learn something new, and we actually get faster and better at it. And hopefully that starting to also benefit a lot of the companies that we work with.
I'll maybe just add a couple of more points from my side. Starting with what is probably not working. A lot of corporates are still stuck in what I call an innovation theater, right? And a lot of it is for branding purpose, want to look innovative. There is a big FOMO going on, fear of missing out. And that keeps the innovation, and especially the corporate accelerators are right in the middle of that. So I find corporates start with something called startup tourism. They go around in Israel and London and Silicon Valley and do a 1-week quick course on startups. Some of them after that get more adventurous and set up a startup zoo in their organization, where they bring in a few startups and get their executives to touch and feel them every now and then of what a startup animal looks like. The next stage is a POC stage. Even there, the corporate wants the startup to do a free POC, right? Which is, I think, quite interesting. Very few startups and corporates are able to create value together, which is deploying the startup technology at scale in the enterprise. And that is still a nirvana stage, and I think hopefully slowly we will move there. The other point which was being talked about was the heavy machinery of a corporate which sits on the startup when they start to work together, especially legal, procurement, and contracting. That really kills a startup, right? So if in our organization, we used to take 3 months to onboard a startup, we have reduced that to 3 days. How we have done that is quite an amazing case study on its own thing, but it had to be done. Because if you could not do it, you could not move at the agility of a startup, then the partnership would not happen.
So from a Microsoft point of view, I think we learned the hard way what didn't work, and that was we just sprayed free Azure credits around everywhere, and we hoped the whole ecosystem would grow, and then we'd make lots of money from selling Azure. And that was a good business goal for ourselves, but didn't really help the ecosystem. And so they just took the free credits, used them, and then shifted and did something else. And so what we did is we refocused onto a accelerator with a co-sell program, because Microsoft is a fantastic B2B company that is in well over 90% of companies worldwide. And when we've refocused there and helped people develop their business and get them ready to sell with our sales force, it's had a massively different impact, because they're now growing. We've had it audited by LSE that they're growing much faster than a standard accelerator. And the accelerators worldwide for Microsoft have now delivered many hundreds of millions of revenue back to the startups from customers that have been introduced as a joint sales force.
So I guess from a Johnson Matthey perspective, we are very much focused on ensuring that we're both generating value from any partnership that we're engaging with, especially with a startup. So we're really looking to work collaboratively with the startup and help them commercialize their technology. So for us, success is making sure that we're very clear on the win-win up front, that we break down the barriers in terms of time, that we don't waste their time, and that we contribute to their costs. So we don't want to be seen as a hindrance, and we want to make sure we're helping in a really staged way to help commercialize that technology.
Thank you. So a lot of learning and sort of structure to the partnerships. We talked a lot there about startups, and I love the startup zoo. I'm going to borrow that, definitely. If that's okay. But is it actually, a vanity project, this working with startups, or is there genuine value there? And indeed, if there is genuine value, how does it get measured? Ian, you must wrestle with this every day. Perhaps you could lead us off.
Yep. So I think it isn't just a vanity project. I think it was a little bit to start off with, but it's not now. And you certainly see that with all the hyperscale cloud providers. We're all sort of trying to work out what we do. And it is about it's about digital, it's about empowering the next wave of the economy, particularly through things like cognitive services, seeing how you can make a real difference. We've measured it in the bottom line with the extra growth we've brought to startups. We're seeing that in our own bottom line, so it's a win all round. But it is, there's some really good stuff coming around, particularly in accessibility for people. If you ever look on YouTube, you'll see some good videos about AI for work we're doing with blind people, things like that. So it's delivering both business benefits, society changes, and helping people. So no, it is more than lip service, but it has taken time to evolve to that. And I think people have always wanted the right thing in many big companies, but it just takes time to work out how do you actually apply that and make that real.
Any other comment from anyone else?
So I think there are compelling reasons for the corporate to work with the startups. If you look at some statistics, almost 50% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared since year 2000. Right? So they have either been bought out or they have been replaced by platform companies. So with that kind of disruption, it is very clear to the corporate or an incumbent in an industry that if they don't change the way they are innovating and they don't become more agile, they will be the next on the target. And the only way they can do that is to work with more agile partners like the startups. So that's why almost 70% of the Fortune 500 companies are working with startups today. And if you look at 60% of global unicorns, these are startups which with $1 billion valuation, almost 60% of global unicorns have at least one corporate investor. So I think the reasons are pretty much there, and the corporates are trying to do things in terms of accelerators, partnerships, and venture funds. And hopefully the execution will improve as we go ahead, because as I always say, corporates are from Mars and startups are from Venus. Right? So it's not a natural act for them to work together. It takes a lot of perseverance. It takes a lot of leadership. We have a lot of scars on our back as well. But I think the main lesson which we learned was that do good first. Right? And that is what has really helped us. we do good for the startup first, and then we think what Accenture will get out of it. And I think that is something which has been our big learning.
Yeah, I think if I look from the bank's perspective, fintech is an area that is changing and evolving in rapid pace, with rapid pace, and it's kind of it's both an infrastructure and technology play that we have to change, but it's also the internal mindset of our employees. So, just to build on all the points just made, it's also a talent acquisition play. We have to think about differently how we're going to acquire our talent in the future, because the investor bankers that we have right now are not necessarily the investor bankers of the future. So how are we gonna change that mindset as well? So it impacts all parts of the business. And for Barclays, we're a 327-year-old bank. If we want to be around for another 300 years, we better play the game.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, we're a 200-year-old company, and one of the real benefits, and beyond the kind of bottom line financial benefits, is actually it acts as an agent of change. It helps role model how you can behave and how you probably should behave in the corporate world. And it helps accelerate that change by actually providing visibility to people in the organization. And it also provides opportunities for them to work within those startup organizations, so you can get the transfer of talent. So it's not just the acquisition, but actually transfer and upskilling people.
Thank you. So I think we're hearing that the panel basically feels you need to do this open innovation thing. So I suppose we better turn our attention a little bit to sort of, okay, so how does that happen? Kristen, perhaps you could just talk a little bit about what the drivers are, and therefore how you would explain it to the C-suite, but also what it actually takes, what's required to get this open innovation journey started for a corporate.
So I always try to break things down into just some quite simple words when I have to explain it upwards as to why do we want to do open innovation. So it's about access, diversity, and reach for me. So by working with startups and external partners, building an ecosystem, we're getting access to a lot more, not just ideas, but actually education, content, contacts that we wouldn't have had otherwise. From a diversity perspective, there's just no way you could have all the various skills that you need in terms of building different types of businesses. So we have a very strong chemistry base in our business, but the way that the things are moving, we need biology, physics, we need digital, we need fintech, we need blockchain, we need everything. And that, in order to access that, we need to look externally. And the third point is about reach. So you can do what you can do in your team, within your company, within the geographic region, but actually everything is global now, and you have to be able to tap into that global reach. So that's how I would explain it to them. In terms of what it takes, more than you think is the answer. We are more recent on our journey in terms of building different ecosystems, and I think people think you can have one person and maybe not full-time building an ecosystem, but I'm sure some of my panelists will tell you more about what it takes from their perspective, but it is a full-time job for several people over several years to really get the ecosystem built and actually self-sufficient.
So a couple of points more on what has been said. I think few things which are very important for making this successful is the early buy-in of the business. A lot of these projects are run by so-called innovation teams. And while they have good intent, they have no budget. So as soon as the POC is over, the startup is told to go because the business were not involved, or they have different priorities. So I think the startup also needs to look into that once they sign into an accelerator program, they should verify whether it has the business support or sponsorship. That's the first. And the second is, I think when you get startups in your organization, you have to make them successful. Right? It is a mandate which you should look into, that if you are the team which is engaging with the startup on the behalf of your organization, it is your mandate to make the startup successful in your organization. Because it's a very small entity and they will never be able to navigate the complexity of processes and systems and politics. So it's your duty. And if you are able to do that, then value can be created.
I think hearing the word open, it sort of means something a little bit different for us, and we've been on a journey as a company because Microsoft was known for its proprietary approach, and then we've had to open and embrace. Steve Ballmer was saying Linux is a cancer, and just recently this year we've released our own Linux distribution for IoT, and then the whole open source thing, you look at with the culmination the last couple of weeks of us actually buying GitHub to further help developers and help build out the whole ecosystem.
Magda, do you have anything quickly to add? I've heard the buzzer. So has anyone got any questions from the audience? I can't see. So we've got a question. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, what would the panel's appetite be for firms from South America, and if we've had any experience with that?
So Accenture has a very big program running in South America, which includes all the countries, but we have a headquarter in Brazil. So if you are interested, I can get you connected with the head of open innovation in Accenture Ventures in South America, and we're doing some really cool stuff there.
Yeah, sadly we don't have any presence in South America, and we have our US office, and they actually are quite excited about the market there from a fintech perspective. So we know that there's a lot of things going on, but there's no established presence there at the moment.
I know Microsoft definitely has offices right through. We don't have an accelerator there directly yet, but what we do have is M12, which is Microsoft Ventures, which changed from being a sort of venture capital firm to almost pure VC firm now, where it invests in firms, and it's very much got a global mandate, and we're investing all over the world.
So like Magda, we don't have a specific presence in South America, but we do operate throughout Mexico and North America, and the teams there do look for opportunities in the region.
Thank you. Any other questions out there? Yeah. Yeah, so question there is, if you're not a startup, you're started on your scale-up journey, but you think you've got very relevant technology, is it the same route in, or do you need to go through a different route?
From my perspective, we very actively look at the startup and the scale-up space, especially as a lot of applications that we want to build into the bank has to be a little bit further along to be able to have the resource and the capability of kind of coming into our infrastructure. So we have a program that we call the Refinery Program, which focuses more on scale-up companies, and the whole kind of the objective with that program is to make the companies enterprise ready and to drive not just proof of concept, but pilots and commercial contracts with the bank.
That's exactly where our sweet spot is, and our accelerator part of our Microsoft for Startups program. And the accelerator is actually called Microsoft Scale Up. We typically work with people who've just raised or are about to raise a Series A, meaning about 10 million fundraise, and typically about $1 million or more annual recurring revenue. So that's right in our sweet spot. So if you've got a great scale-up business, and come talk to me after.
Same with Accenture. I think from my team perspective, we look at organizations of at least $100 million. We could look at that. After that, it is more of our alliances team, which gets involved. But to get you connected to the right person, I don't know whether you are less than 100 million or more than 100 million, but depending on that, I can still be the first point of contact in Accenture.
Any more questions? So can I, just as a final question to each of the panel, it'll be really short answers, but just we've talked about, you know, the structure, the process, the need for open innovation. What are the main technologies that you're currently seeing running through that machine once it's built?
So Accenture is looking and focusing into a certain set of technologies which we call IMAX, which is interactive, mobility, analytics, cloud, and cybersecurity. These are something which we have matured quite a lot, and now we are working on things like applied intelligence, which is a combination of data, analytics, and artificial intelligence, Industry X.0, and extended reality, which is augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality.
The trend that we see internally, the bank, I could mention every single key technology, really, okay, but I will point out two, and the first one is artificial intelligence, simply because the amount of data that we sit on and don't do anything with is just, the opportunities there are quite big for us. And then secondly, cybersecurity technology to prevent fraud and help us protect our customers is really key.
Okay.
If I have, 5 people ask me about one workshop they want me to run, one thing they want is AI, 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 and AI.
And Kristen?
So we're a slightly different organization. People want to talk to us about AI, but we're not the right people to talk to. We're very much focused more on the science side, so things to do with nanomaterials, things to do with highly complex chemistry sets.
Great. Well, thank you very much to the panel, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Order your